What could possibly be more incredible than watching a 20-year-old kid take on a tennis GOAT almost twice his age at the finals of one of the biggest slams in tennis history? Nothing. Nothing at all. And the best part? He didn't just take him on, he took him to school. Now, I'm sure you know the slam that we're talking about here. But what you probably don't know is that that wasn't the only incredible moment at the 2023 Wimbledon. These are the top 10 moments at Wimbledon 2023. And first, we've got to start with the biggest meltdown of the season, not just because it's one of the most dramatic tantrums in Wimbledon history, but also because it was one of the most emotional moments in tennis history. Number 10. 16-year-old knocks herself out on court. And when I say knocks herself out, I'm talking about a full-on self-combat session right after getting knocked out of the tournament. Now, it might sound hilarious at first, but hey, tennis matches are so intense that losing the biggest match of your career can break you emotionally, even as an adult. So it's not hard to understand why 16-year-old Mira Andreeva would have an emotional meltdown after losing the biggest match of her career at an age when most of her mates are struggling with 10th grade. Now, Mira isn't your regular 16-year-old. The Russian teen made it to the finals of the Australian Open in January 2023, and just 6 months later, she was smashing opponents at Wimbledon. Unfortunately, the 16-year-old fell short in the 4th round after getting 2 code violations for being aggressive. And it turned out that the 16-year-old had a unique way of dealing with her defeat, because after the loss, she began to punch herself repeatedly before completely breaking down in tears. I guess emotions run pretty wild when you're that young. Maybe some anger management classes for players might not be such a bad idea. And speaking of ideas, who would have thought that protesting during a tennis match would turn out to be such a brilliant idea? Number 9. 3 protesters crash the tennis party. These guys, that's who. If we're being honest, tennis has had its fair share of crazy spectators throughout its history, and this year's Wimbledon is a very good example of that. It all started when a woman and a man wearing Just Stop Oil t-shirts ran onto the court, interrupting the first-round match between Katie Boulter and Daria Saville. Like you would expect, they were dragged out by security, and everything went back to normal. That was until another man wearing the same shirt ran onto the court and threw orange confetti on the grass during another match. Thankfully, security guards were on standby, so he was dragged away and arrested like the other two before he got the chance to cause more chaos. Epic. But certainly not as epic as the most Wimbledon warnings ever. Number 8. Epic champagne warning. During the match between Anastasia Potapova and Mira Andreeva, it was all fun and games until someone popped open a champagne bottle during a serve. Now, we all know that Wimbledon comes with some luxurious perks, and sipping on champagne courtside is practically tradition. So drinking champagne is not such a big deal. But after what happened in 2019, umpires had to be on the lookout for champagne pops. You see, back in 2019, a cork flew onto the court during a match between Benoit Paire and Yuri Vesely at Wimbledon. So when umpire John witnessed a mischievous fan attempting a mid-serve champagne pop, he knew he had to squash the cork-popping shenanigans on site. In his words, "Ladies and gentlemen, if you're opening a bottle of champagne, don't do it as the players are about to serve. Lesson learned, folks. It's crystal clear that tennis and champagne don't mix. On the court, at least." Now, this could pass for one of those moments you just had to witness. And so does seeing the Princess of Wales at Wimbledon. Number 7. Special appearance of Princess Kate. After impressing royal watchers with her tennis skills ahead of the tournament, the Princess of Wales, Princess Kate, made her first appearance at Wimbledon this year. And it was absolutely incredible to watch. Once the matches kicked off, it was game on for Kate. She was so laser-focused that you could have sworn she didn't even blink for a second, because her eyes were glued to the tennis ball. Seriously, not even a tiara could distract her. Unfortunately, just like every other good thing, there was a hiccup. The British weather decided to sprinkle some rain on the parade, and you know what that meant. The match had to be called off. Oh well, even royalty can't control Mother Nature. And you know who else joined Princess Kate? None other than the 8-time Wimbledon winner, Roger Federer. Number 6. Special appearance by Roger Federer. You see, 2 decades ago, a 21-year-old Roger Federer listed his first Grand Slam trophy at Wimbledon just 5 years after turning pro. That trophy was the first of 8 other Wimbledon trophies the Swiss would go on to bag throughout his career. So yes, The 21-time Grand Slam winner showing up at Wimbledon for the first time since his official retirement was a very big deal. And it's not just because he's one of the best tennis players that have ever walked the planet, but he's also the only man to have won Wimbledon 8 times. It was so grand that the Swiss GOAT was given a standing ovation for a few minutes before he locked lips with his wife and sat down. And since we're talking about record setters, we have to talk about how one guy kept the audience on their feet by making history. Number 5. Chris Eubanks makes history. You see, Chris is an American tennis player that burst onto the big stage back in 2017. But before he turned pro, Eubanks had a spectacular junior career. Back in 2013, the American had a 48-6 win-loss record in the juniors. He also advanced 6 rounds in the USTA Nationals and won the Georgia State Closed Junior Challenger. So when he turned pro, it was pretty clear that Chris was certainly destined to be one or the leading forces in the tennis world. However, that didn't happen, or at least not as fast as we expected, because the American tennis player never made it past the second round of a Grand Slam and had only one title to his name since he turned pro in 2015. But on the 10th of July, Chris shocked the tennis world when he knocked out 5th seed Stefanos Tsitsipas in a 5-set match. That's not even the best part, because that win also made him the oldest player to reach the men's singles quarterfinals since 1968. And just like Chris, a 17-year-old kid also made history at this year's Wimbledon. Number 4. Henry Searle makes history. Let's be honest, you have to be incredibly talented to make it to the finals of a Grand Slam at any level. And that's exactly how you know that Henry is not just a talented young champ. You might just be looking at the next big thing in the tennis world. The Brit had his first major win back in 2022 when he won the Junior British National Championship, and made it to the quarterfinals at the 2023 French Open boys singles before losing to eventual winner Dino Prismic. But just a few months later, he would go on to not only win Junior Wimbledon, but also make history while he was at it. The 17-year-old ended Britain's 61-year wait for a boys singles champion at Wimbledon. If that doesn't tell you how good he is, well, I don't know what will. Now, this list would be incomplete without talking about one of the best female tennis players of all time. Number 3. From unseated to Wimbledon winner. I mean, what better way to claim your stake as the next big thing in women's tennis than to snatch up the Wimbledon trophy like it's your birthright? That's exactly what Markéta Vondrousova did at Wimbledon. The Czech player shocked the tennis world when she demoralized Ons Jabeur in straight sets at the final. Making it to the finals alone is something that a lot of players can only dream of. But what makes Markéta's victory so special was that it made the world number 42 player Wimbledon's first unseeded women's champion in the Open era. And just in case you're wondering what unseeded means, we're talking about players that have not been ranked among the top 16 in the tennis world. Now that's what you call exceptional. As well as watching Carlos Alcaraz break Djokovic's 3-year Wimbledon winning streak. That's just out of this world. Number 2. Carlos Alcaraz takes Novak to school. Over the past few years of men's tennis, Novak Djokovic has spent his time destroying the hopes and dreams of nearly all younger challengers at the major tournaments. All except one person, Carlos Alcaraz. It's been pretty clear since he turned pro that Carlos Alcaraz is just different, both in terms of his talent and his mental strength. Because barely a month after his body crumbled under the tension of facing Djokovic at the French Open, Alcaraz took the Serbian to school in a jaw-dropping 5-sets final match, won his first Wimbledon title, and sealed his claim as the future of tennis. With his first Wimbledon in the bag, Alcaraz ended the long-standing and staggering dominance of the Big Three of men's tennis. Now, if there's anything better than watching Alcaraz snatch his first Wimbledon from Djokovic, it's watching Djokovic talk about the Spanish player. Number 1. I haven't played a player like him ever. Novak Djokovic. After getting trashed in a heated 5-set battle that lasted for almost 5 long hours, the former world number 1 had one thing to say. In the Serbian's words, I haven't played a player like him ever, to be honest.
So I haven't played a player like him ever, to be honest.
He also talked about how Carlos combines the playing style of Roger, Rafa, and himself all in one. And when you think about it like this, playing against Alcaraz is like going head-to-head against Roger, Nadal, and Djokovic all at once. There's no beating him. At least not anytime soon. So there you have it, folks. Which of these moments was your favorite? We'd love to hear from you down in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to learn more interesting things about your favorite tennis players.